High above the city lights of San Diego lies a place where the cold never truly leaves, and neither do the souls who venture too far. If you listen closely, you can still hear them calling out, begging for a way home that no longer exists. When you think of San Diego, you probably imagine sunny beaches and palm trees. But just an hour east, the world changes. Here, in the Camaca and Laguna Mountains, the air grows thin, the trees grow twisted, and in winter the snow buries the trails and sometimes the people who walk them. The Camaca Mountains rise sharply, their highest point, Camaca Peak, reaching over 6,500 feet. The Laguna Mountains just southeast are quieter but even more remote, shrouded often in thick fog and sudden snowstorms. Temperatures can plunge below freezing overnight, especially in isolated valleys where hikers can easily lose their way. The Kumeyaay people indigenous to this region have long told tales of spirits who roam these mountains. They spoke of the Wailing Ones, unseen forces who would call to travelers with the voices of loved ones, luring them off the paths into deadly ravines. Some believed the mountains themselves were alive, jealous and protective of their secrets. But for some, the mountains had something far worse in store. And while some stories end with search and rescue, others end with only echoes left behind. The frozen mountains of San Diego are beautiful but deadly, and for over a century, people have entered these peaks and simply vanished. In 1912, a trapper named Thomas Riggs was last seen entering the Laguna foothills during a snowstorm. His cabin was found days later, fireplace still burning, but Riggs was gone. No tracks, no signs of struggle. In 1978, a group of 3 hikers on a winter camping trip in Camaca Rancho State Park disappeared after radioing for help. Search crews later found their tent completely intact with all supplies inside, but no sign of the hikers. In 2005, a seasoned solo backpacker, Erica James, called her family from a mountain peak. Minutes later, her GPS pinged 3 miles west in a spot that would take hours to reach on foot. She was never seen again. Clear skies turn into blizzards within minutes, confusing even experienced hikers. Survivors often report losing hours of memory, believing they had only been missing for minutes. Compasses spin wildly or freeze, as if magnetic forces in certain parts of the mountain distort them. Some search parties have reported hearing cries deep in the woods, only to find nothing and no footprints leading to the sound. Except the mountains weren't finished claiming souls. As technology advanced, so did the mysteries, and what searchers found or didn't find only deepened the legend. Long before GPS and hiking boots, early settlers and the native peoples before them knew one terrible truth about these frozen peaks. Sometimes the mountains call out to you, and sometimes you should never answer. The Kumeyaay people spoke of Tawishma, spirits of the lost who cry for help, mimicking human voices. These cries were believed to be tricksters luring the compassionate away from safe trails into the jaws of the wilderness. Those who chased the voices often found themselves hopelessly lost, and sometimes they were never found at all. Pioneers spoke of the crying ones, faint weeping or panicked shouts just beyond the tree line. Campers would hear someone sobbing for help in the middle of the night. But when they ventured into the dark, there would be no one there. And sometimes they couldn't find their way back to camp. A rancher in the late 1800s followed the sound of a child crying during a snowstorm. He vanished for 3 days, and when found, he had no memory, only frostbite and a story of a woman in white who kept calling him deeper into the mountains. In the 1960s, a group of scouts camping in the Laguna Mountains heard a man shouting, "Over here, help me!" When they followed, they became separated. Only half made it back to camp before nightfall, and one scout reported seeing footprints that started normally, then faded into nothing. Locals today still warn, if you hear a voice calling from the fog, don't follow it, no matter how real it sounds. Because not everything lost in these mountains wants to be found. For decades, the mountains have been a place of mystery. But the most unsettling experiences didn't come from the lost hikers themselves. They came from the ones who heard their cries. Bob recalls an encounter during a solo overnight shift. He was stationed at the Cuyamaca Ranger Station when he heard a faint crying sound echoing through the trees at midnight. At first, he thought it was an animal, but the longer he listened, the more it sounded like a child, a human child. He grabbed his radio and hurried out into the night, but when he reached the origin of the sound, nothing was there. It was like the wind had carried it away, he said. No footprints, no one in sight, just silence. Sarah, a seasoned ranger, recounts hearing what seemed like urgent cries for help on the Squirrel Creek Trail. She followed the sound in the snow, but found that the tracks disappeared midway. Even stranger, she said, the wind stopped. It was unnervingly still, but I could still hear those cries echoing in my head. When Sarah reported the event, another ranger who had been with the park for years simply nodded and said, "You're not the first to hear them, just don't follow them." Mike was hiking with a friend near Laguna Mountain when they encountered a strange, unexplained shadow darting across their trail. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't a person either. Just a black figure darting from tree to tree, and when we tried to chase it, it vanished. They found fresh footprints leading off the path, but when they tried to follow, the tracks simply stopped. Mike said, "It's like they were erased in an instant, just gone. Like the person had never existed." A fisherman who works the Cuyamaca Reservoir told a chilling tale of hearing the cries of what seemed like a woman screaming for help across the water. He called the local authorities, but when they arrived, the noise had vanished and no one was seen near the water. "I heard it with my own ears, but no one else ever did," he said. A family camping near Laguna Canyon reported hearing footsteps and distant whispers around their campsite in the dead of night, but when they went out to investigate, they found nothing. The oddest part was the temperature drop when the voices started. It felt like we were standing in the middle of a freezer. A couple hiking near Stonewall Peak claimed to have seen a shadowy figure walking briskly through the woods, but no one was ever around to confirm it. "I know what I saw," the husband insists. "It was a man walking as if he was in a hurry, but when I called out, the figure vanished, just disappeared behind the trees." A hiker recalled finding fresh tracks in the snow that led straight into the trees, but when they turned around, they disappeared in the blink of an eye. He said, "It was like someone had taken the tracks out with a shovel. One moment they were there, and the next, nothing." "Okay, I don't know about you, but I'm not sticking around if I hear a child crying in the woods or if the footprints suddenly disappear, no thank you." But wait, what if that's what they want? We'll find out. Because in these mountains sometimes, the trail doesn't end. It just changes. But the most chilling part of these encounters isn't the shadows, or even the voices. It's the hikers who followed them, and never returned. It's almost like the mountains are replaying their final cries. Trapped forever in a frozen loop, one investigator noted. Nature can play tricks, but sometimes it's not nature you're hearing. Okay, so real talk. If my radio starts whispering "help me" while I'm hiking in the snow, I'm turning around so fast I'd probably set a land speed record. No shame. How about you? But for some, it was already too late. The recordings were just warnings, but they didn't save everyone. Some hikers became part of the mountain's voice. Forever. She was about a mile from her base camp when she heard her own father's voice calling from deeper into the woods. Thinking he had arrived early to meet her, which made no sense, she followed the sound. Her GPS malfunctioned, pointing her in circles. Only after 6 hours, freezing and exhausted, she found her way back by following a sudden gust of warm wind, a phenomenon no one could explain. It sounded exactly like my dad, same tone, same urgency, but when I found my way back, my father was still hours away, in town. He slipped off the main trail after hearing what he described as his own voice calling him toward a ravine. Scrambling for footing, he almost fell into a hidden crevasse. A search team later found him disoriented but alive in the complete opposite direction of where he had been hiking. She reported hearing children singing somewhere nearby despite no families or camps in the area due to a blizzard warning. As she moved toward the sound, fog thickened rapidly, cutting visibility to near zero. She finally huddled under a tree for the night, following a flashing signal light that shouldn't have been there, possibly her own emergency beacon malfunctioning in her favor. "I swear I heard a nursery rhyme. It kept getting closer and sweeter until I realized I wasn't moving anymore. The fog was moving around me," When science can't explain what's happening, some turn to the supernatural, and on these frozen trails, even seasoned investigators found more than they bargained for. But for every whisper captured and every shadow glimpsed, the frozen mountains of San Diego still refuse to give up all their secrets. Not every mystery has to be paranormal, but in these mountains, even the rational explanations can leave you with goosebumps. The rugged terrain and frozen valleys can trap and bounce sounds in strange ways. Cries could be echoes of distant hikers or even distortions of animal calls. Certain rock formations naturally amplify and twist human voices across miles. Indigenous tribes of the region have long held deep respect for the mountains. Sacred lands. Some areas were considered gateways to the spirit world, not to be disturbed lightly. Are the mountains just playing tricks on us, or are lost souls still crying for help? Drop your theories in the comments, hit that subscribe button for more journeys into the unknown, and remember, sometimes the echoes you hear aren't meant to be answered.